Actually, you know what? Before I get started, hold on. Let me try one thing. I don't even know if this is going to work with the angle, but there we go. That's perfect. Oh my god. Oh, guys, help me. My head's turned into a devil fruit. Ah! Actually, you know what? My fellow 90s kids will remember this. There was a commercial for fruit gushers back in the 90s. Remember this? Where kids would eat the fruit gushers and their heads would turn into the fruit, like a giant strawberry or something. True fact about me, when I was a kid, I was actually terrified of trying fruit gushers because I didn't understand how really bad 1990s CG worked on the commercials. I thought their heads were actually turning into poorly rendered fruits. So I'm like, man, I really want to try fruit gushers, but I don't want my head to turn into a giant apple or something. Then it'll rot, and then that's horrible. So that's about where I was around 1998. It took me a while to try fruit gushers, but when I finally did, they were pretty okay. They were pretty okay. They weren't great. They were pretty okay. All right, hey everybody, how you doing? Tekking and Barry here, back again, and oh man, we got a lot of stuff to talk about today. Okay, so Oda dropped some nice hot exposition on us last chapter, and you know what? There's different kinds of exposition reveals in One Piece. That's kind of the whole reason we're reading the story, to find out all about the mysteries that Oda set up in the story, right? But there's some kinds of exposition that's stuff that's already been alluded to, mysteries in the One Piece world that we've already, wanted to find out about, like Dr. Vegapunk. We've been wanting to figure out what's up with Dr. Vegapunk since like Thriller Bark when he was first mentioned. That was back in like 2007, so that's like 14 years already. We want to know what's up with Dr. Vegapunk. What does he look like? Is he working for the revolutionaries? What's up with the pacifistas? What's up with artificial devil fruits? All that jazz, right? So when Oda finally gets around to revealing Dr. Vegapunk in the story, everybody's gonna be like, whoa! But everybody's also gonna be like, finally, right? We finally find out what's up with this dude. That's one kind. But then there's another kind of exposition, like the kind we got last chapter, chapter 1017, spoiler alert, where it's about stuff that I think most of us didn't even think was going to be that important. It's a pretty popular manga. I'm sure there's a lot of you out there that were thinking, just wait for it. The history and lore of the Gomu-Gomu No Mi is going to be extraordinarily relevant in this story. Hey, you got me, all right? I didn't think it was that important. Yeah, every now and then I would think about, like, who was the previous user of the Gomu-Gomu No Mi, or who were the enemy that Shanks got it from. Were they Marines? Were they another pirate crew? Every now and then I would ask myself those questions, but I never actually, thought it was going to be super relevant, okay? Especially since, when asked about Luffy's ability, like, why did Oda give his main character such a goofy, wacky, rubbery ability, Oda responded basically like, I wanted to give him something a little bit, non-traditional. Like Goku has giant energy attacks, Ichigo has a giant sword, Naruto has like basically a hurricane in his hand or whatever. I wanted to give Luffy something unique, something that wouldn't immediately, scream main character power, right? But also I wanted to do something that was more like wacky, that I could have fun drawing. That's like kind of Oda's response to that, right? And of course Oda did a lot of crazy stuff with Luffy's devil fruit and his various gears and everything. So I always just wrote it off as like, oh, okay, so the Gomu-Gomu No Mi is not meant to be like the strongest devil fruit in the series, the end-all be-all. It's not meant to harbor some kind of secret ability. It's strong, certainly, but most of that strength comes from Luffy training with it for so long and activating all his various gears. Somebody else that ate the Gomu-Gomu No Mi might not have all of the abilities that Luffy had because they might not think it's as useful as it is, right? But there's certainly a lot of other strong devil fruits out there. I just always assumed that maybe the Marines or some other pirate crew picked this up at random. They knew it was a devil fruit, and regardless of what kind of devil fruit it is, it will sell very well on the black market of One Piece. Remember at the auction house when they were going down that list, when they were going to go rescue Kami, there was like, devil fruit users or devil fruits themselves can sell for a pretty high price for quite a number of berries. I guess it would be more berries if they could actually confirm what the devil fruit was. Like if they could get their hands on, the Maramara No Mi was one example. If they had the Maramara No Mi and they actually tried to sell it at auction, probably hundreds and hundreds of millions of berries, maybe even over 1 billion berries if they knew exactly what it was. If it's just a random devil fruit, even a paramecia that wasn't really cataloged, it would probably still sell for a decent amount. So I thought, they had it, and then Shanks attacked them, they got it, and then Luffy ate it by accident. What are you gonna do, right? But in the last chapter, when it was revealed that Who's past as a CP9 agent actually directly hinges on upon the Gomu-Gomu no Mi being stolen from the world government, taken by Shanks, and resulting in Who's Who being thrown in jail by the world government, that raises some questions there. So, the Gomu-Gomu no Mi was so important to the world government that when they had it in their possession, and they ordered Who's Who, as he stated, Who's Who, is supposed to be, like, as strong as Rob Lucci, or he was, like, up there with Rob Lucci as, like, one of the strongest members of the CP9, which was also the strongest Cypher Pol agency. So pretty much one of their strongest, if not their strongest, intelligence operative at the time was given the task of escorting this thing. And then when it was taken from them by Shanks and his crew, they punished him by throwing him in jail. Their top agent, okay, that could do so much more for them. That blunder was enough for him to be punished that severely. I mean, to put this in perspective, as I said in the review, look at what happened during Eni's lobby with CP9, the CP9 that we all know about with Rob Lucci and Kaku and Jabra, okay? When they were all defeated by the Straw Hats and Nico Robin managed to get away and the Buster Call was summoned and leveled Eni's lobby, Spondum pinned all of that on the CP9 agents instead of himself because, Spondum's a douche. But anyway, yeah, so CP9 basically defected from the world government in their cover series, The Independent Report, and they declared they would return one day to take their vengeance, okay? And then 2 years later, they're members of CP0 now. So it's like that blunder of the Buster Calling of an entire island, the government's judiciary island, and letting Nico Robin escape, a woman that can read the poneglyphs and possibly find the ancient weapons. That situation, that blunder, was more easily forgiven by the world government than Who's Who losing this. That raises some questions, and we're gonna delve into that today. I don't have any, definite answers. Everybody's kind of scrambling right now trying to find the answer, right? It's just like, I gotta figure this out. I think I discovered what the devil fruit is all about, guys. I'm like, I don't know, but we're gonna go into some topics here. Okay, so the first topic is, well, basically, it's like an overarching topic of, like, why is this so important? So that's basically the question we're trying to answer here, okay? So let's start with the basics. I don't think this is the reason, but let's start with the power of the fruit itself. Let's just look at the Gomu-Gomu no Mi and look at what it's capable of, and let's see if maybe it's the power of the Gomu-Gomu no Mi, maybe an ability that Luffy has not displayed yet, or maybe an awakening of the fruit. Maybe that's the reason why the world government wanted it so bad, okay? So obviously, Luffy's been able to do some really impressive stuff with it, but maybe the previous user of the fruit, and we'll get into him as well, or him or her, or whoever that was, in a minute here, but like the idea is maybe the person that had the fruit before Luffy was able to do different stuff with the fruit, but like, nonetheless, very impressive. Or maybe the previous user managed to awaken the fruit's power, and so an awakened Gomu-Gomu no Mi is actually really freaking devastating. Truly devastating to the point where it's like the government really wants this power, okay? And so when it was discovered somewhere in the east, I'm assuming that's where it was, because Shanks set up his home base at Fuchsia Village, and I imagine he was like sailing out and around the east, but he wouldn't have traveled very far, because that's the whole reason of having a home base, right? And so, every couple of weeks or months, Shanks would ship out from Fuchsia, sail around a bit, come back, resupply, get drunk, have fun, and then go back out to sea again. And he did that for about a year until he finally decided to leave Fuchsia one last time and go to the Grand Line finally, okay? So, yeah, it had to be somewhere in the east. I don't think it makes any sense for the fruit to be found anywhere else. But when the fruit was discovered, the government sent CP9 with Who's Who heading up the operation to retrieve this fruit, the Gomu-Gomu no Mi, at all costs and bring it back, I'm assuming, to Marijois. I'm assuming this is a situation even more than just the Marines would want this, like to give it to like a vice admiral or even an admiral or something. It's like something that Marijois, the higher-ups, really, really wanted, okay? So maybe it was because of the power of the fruit itself, but like I said, I'm kind of doubtful of that. Even if it was like the previous user had some really strong awakening, I feel like, Logia's would still be stronger, like an awakened Logia would even be stronger than like anything that Luffy could really do base with the Gomu-Gomu no Mi. I mean, unless it's Eneru's Goro-Goro, where the Gomu-Gomu was like a natural enemy of that. Maybe it was written in the lore that like, hundreds of years ago, the previous user of the Goro-Goro no Mi ruled over the Grand Line, and then it was the previous user of the Gomu-Gomu no Mi that defeated him, and so that like lore was through the history, and now it's just like, oh, we want the Gomu-Gomu no Mi because it's the god-slaying fruit. Doubtful. I mean, hey, it's not crazy to think that the previous user of the Gomu-Gomu No Mi lived on the Blue Sea, because look at Raijin Island, that exists. That might be a byproduct of the Gomu-Gomu No Mi, decades or maybe even centuries, or hell, screw it, millennia before Eneru had the fruit. So, the Gomu-Gomu No Mi and the Gomu-Gomu have that kind of opposites relationship. So maybe it is something connected to that. I don't know. I also saw a lot of people talking about maybe like a special ability this fruit has, like a passive ability. Am I using that correctly? That's always active? Yes, of course. Passive abilities are always active. I saw some people saying that, like, what if the devil fruit has an ability where you no longer age? And I'm thinking, because your cells turn to rubber, so that maybe halts the aging process. So it's like, it's not immortality, but your body's like processes, maybe like it doesn't age as much, it slows the process down, so you'll live longer. I saw that, and I'm thinking, well, there is the Oppy No Mi that already kind of has that. The Hobby No Mi that Sugar has also is kind of that, eternal youth kind of thing. Although Sugar is not immortal, she's just stuck as a kid the rest of her life, okay? Whereas the situation with Law's Oppy No Mi seems to imply that you will be given eternal youth, and as long as you don't die from like getting shot or like brutally injured and you die that way, you will live forever. You are kind of functionally immortal in that way. So with that, I don't think that maybe Luffy's Gomu-Gomu No Mi would give you like eternal youth like that, but maybe it might slow the aging process a bit, making you live for maybe, well, in One Piece that age is kind of extended a bit because Dr. Kureha is like 141. Maybe like you could live a few hundred years, but you still will age and you still will die of old age. It will just take longer, maybe something like that. I mean, that would be a useful power to have. There's probably not very many devil fruits that let you live a tremendous long amount of time, because Sugars really doesn't do that. The Hobby No Mi doesn't really make you live, a very, very long time. It just halts your age at a certain point, whereas the Oppy No Mi would maybe make you live forever as long as you're careful, and maybe the Gomu-Gomu No Mi slows it, but other than that, I can't really think of any other devil fruit that would really let you have that kind of like extra time on the planet. So maybe. I don't think so, but that's an interesting idea. Okay, so that's the power of the fruit just in and of itself. I really don't think that's the reason the government wanted it, okay? It might be a side thing, and especially with all the ways Luffy has used it now, maybe the government's a little bit more interested in the actual function of the fruit, because Luffy's going gear fourth and everything, but I don't think that was the core reason, okay? So moving on now, what about previous users of the fruit? Or, by extension to that, future users of the fruit. And what do I mean by that? I don't mean like, we're going some Attack on Titan, like Attack Titan route with it. It's like, oh, the future users of the Gomu-Gomu No Mi can see into the memories of the other users. Nothing like that, but no. A long time ago, a previous user of the Gomu-Gomu No Mi existed. That person died. The fruit was reincarnated. How long did it take for the government to find it? We don't know, especially if we're following the theory that the fruit can be reincarnated anywhere in the world. It's not like directly next to them or something like that, like wherever like the nearest fruit is. If it really is just anywhere in the world, it could have been centuries until the world government finally found it, okay? So the past user would be relevant in this context, and also, who would they want to give the fruit to? Okay, I think a lot of people are focusing on the past, which is important. We're going to get into that. But I think it's also important who exactly was going to receive this power if it wasn't for Luffy. Let's say who succeeded. Let's say he managed to return to, I guess, Marijois with the Gomu-Gomu No Mi. Who would have eaten this? One of the Celestial Dragons? CP0? Probably not. The Gorosei, maybe? Im-sama? Considering the absolute, brutal penalty that Who's Who suffered from this, just one step shy of just being executed for losing this. He got thrown in prison, their top agent. I feel like you have to either get the upper echelon involved, or it just doesn't make any sense here. It has to be a direct order from the Gorosei, the 5 Elder Stars themselves, or even beyond them, a direct order from Im-sama. Well, Im-sama gave the order to the Gorosei, then the Gorosei ordered Who's Who to go retrieve it. He had to report in that he failed. I wonder how that conversation went, right? So Who's Who's like, man, they have me going all the way out into the East Blue to retrieve some devil fruit. What devil fruit do they want us to get again? The Gomu-Gomu No Mi, sir. What does that one do? Turns you into rubber. Oh my god, why does the Gorosei want that? Alright, fine. I mean, I'm on the government payroll. I guess I'll do it. So they retrieved it wherever it was, some random island, maybe some deserted mirage island in the middle of the East. They get the thing. They're bringing it back. Shanks attacks them, and then Shanks steals it, and then, you know, Who's Who is like, alright, well, they're not going to be happy about this, but how mad could they really be? Hi there, Who's Who reporting in from CP9. Ah, yes, Who's Who. What's the ETA on the delivery of the precious cargo? And Who's Who's like, all right, look, you're not going to be happy about this, but turns out some pirate crew attacked. I think it was the red hair crew, those up-and-coming kind of rookies. Yeah, they attacked us and they stole the fruit. So I'm sorry about that. I guess I can take whatever punishment. You lost the Gomu-Gomu No Mi! And like Who's Who's like, yeah, is it that important? Is it important? It's the Gomu-Gomu No Mi! You're going in prison! I'm like, what? For what? You know, for that? It turns you into gum! Who cares? You know, it's like, and so that's what happened, right? I guess that's how the conversation went, right? So, unless it's like something the Gorosei, one of them, or maybe all of them wanted, or Im-sama directly ordered, this makes zero sense, all right? Like, it's like high stakes here we're dealing with here. So yeah, for that reason, a lot of people have arrived at the conclusion, and I will say I do like this one. The previous user of the Gomu-Gomu No Mi was Joy Boy. I've seen a lot of that, and I was thinking about it myself, and I'm like, you know what? That actually does kind of make sense, because it's like, it kind of goes one step beyond the whole idea that Roger had the fruit before Luffy. Let's just go back to the beginning. Let's go back to Joy Boy himself, who, you know, probably looked a lot like Roger and Luffy, and so he had the powers of the Gomu-Gomu No Mi, and then he died, and then his fruit got reincarnated somewhere in the world. They didn't know where, and it took centuries, but they finally found it. I guess, well, you know, honestly, there could have been other users along the way. It might have just been a long, long time ago, right? Because Joy Boy had the fruit over 800 years ago. Maybe there was another user about 600 years ago, and the government killed them, and then it went away somewhere else. And they tried to get it every time it got reincarnated into a new person, but it always slipped through their fingers every single time. It doesn't have to go directly from Joy Boy to Luffy. Could have been like a few other people, but the fact they kept failing to get their hands on it was the reason they punished Who's Who so much. It's like, damn it, not again! We've been trying to get this damn fruit for 8 centuries! Every time! Next person that messes this up, off with their heads! You know? So, it might be a situation like that. So, maybe some other previous incarnations of Joy Boy had the fruit before Luffy, finally got reincarnated in the East, they found it, and then they sent Who's Who, and he failed, and then that's why he was punished so severely, right? It would also make sense that they would want the fruit, maybe not necessarily to receive the power for anybody in the government to eat it, but kind of like how that giant straw hat was in the freezer under Marijois. It might be a thing where, like, Im wants to take everything ever relating to Joy Boy, anything related to him, you know, the poneglyphs, the hat, anything, and tuck it away in the basement of Marijois where the light of the world will never shone upon it again. Okay, he has to take all these remnants from the past that might give hints or clues or reminders of the Void Century and lock them all away, alright? And so the Gomu-Gomu No Mi is maybe something like that. Its power itself is not that crazy. Even the awakening of it, Luffy at his absolute strongest, might not be that super impressive on the grand scheme of everything, but he doesn't want to have the power. He just wants to get the fruit, lock it in the freezer behind a giant vault in Marijois, so it never sees the light of day again. Because maybe people might think, like, there's like a legend of it or something, or someone has the fruit. Wouldn't it be weird? Oh man, I don't even know if they want to go this route with it, but wouldn't it be weird if devil fruits could contain some sort of memory or spirit or aura of a previous user? I know that's never really been explained in the story. It's been talked about that, like, well, the reason they're called devil fruits is because there's a popular misconception that, like, devils themselves live in them, which is, as far as we know, not true. But, you know, it could always be revealed that, like, okay, it's not a devil, but there is some sort of sentience, some sort of living, like entity or form inside of it in some way. If that was the case, maybe the devil fruits, when they're reincarnated, can choose where they'll regrow next. I don't know. I'm kind of grasping at straws here, but like, you know, if this was Joy Boy's devil fruit and Eam wants it, maybe he's afraid if somebody eats it, they might receive some memories of Joy Boy, or they might become the next Joy Boy, which Luffy is, you know, kind of slated to become. So that's an issue there. Let's see. I also wanted to throw out the idea that maybe this fruit was originally owned by the world government, like they had this fruit during the Void Century, and it was stolen from them, okay? And that could actually tie back to the Joy Boy thing. Maybe the government had this, and then Joy Boy stole it, and then had the power, and now here we are 8 centuries later, and it's more of like, it's not maybe something that they know why they want it. It's just kind of like the same thing with the bridge at Tequila Wolf. It's kind of a thing like, oh, I want you to build this bridge, and then they just forget the reason. It's like, we want you to retrieve the Gomu-Gomu No Mi at all costs. Oh, okay, why do you want it? It's like, oh, shit, we've actually forgotten the reason why we want it. But I think it was stolen from us at one point, like a long time ago. Maybe it wasn't. I don't know. The point is that my great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather, who was a celestial dragon, really wanted the fruit, so you have to go get the fruit now, because that was his order like 5 centuries ago, so you have to get it now. Maybe something like that. Maybe it was stolen from them, and then that's why they want it back, and they've kind of forgotten the reason why. That would be kind of funny, because we're all sitting here trying to figure out why it's so important, and maybe it's like even the people that asked for it, the Celestial Dragons or the Gorosei, don't even know why they want it. They just know they do, right? That's something there. And then the last thing I wrote down here was research, or Vegapunk's research in particular, okay? Because Vegapunk is obviously doing a lot of, research into artificial devil fruits. It was confirmed by Oda in an SBS that, only zones could be reproduced using the artificial method, okay? But that's only the method that Caesar was using with the SAD and, like, the chemical soup of all the animal DNA and everything like that. Sounds disgusting, which it probably is. I'm picturing Caesar just lining up a bunch of animals, like, here's a horse, here's a hippo, here's a gorilla, and he just, like, sucks out all their blood and just throws it into a vat and just mixes it together to make the SAD or whatever, right? But Oda specified that's just Caesar's technology. That's the limit with him. He can only make zones. However, Vegapunk, he might have broken through that barrier already where he can replicate he can make artificial Paramecias, artificial Logias, artificial mythical, which is what he did with Momonosuke's fruit, which is based off of Kaido's mythical zone, okay? So that was a failure, but maybe for some reason the Gomu-Gomu No Mi is like super important to his research. Like, if I could just get my hands on the Gomu-Gomu No Mi, that's step 1 for me making artificial Paramecias. Maybe? I don't know, possibly, I guess, perhaps. Yeah, but anyway, those are just, like, some general ideas there. I did address, okay, what if Joy Boy was the one that had it in the past? I guess I didn't really answer the question of who would have it in the future. Like I said, maybe Eam or one of the Gorosei. I guess I kind of talked about it. Or they could just throw it in the freezer and, like, nobody ever should really have the power. In fact, that's probably going to be preferable, because if somebody does get the power, and they die, then it might get reincarnated somewhere in the world again. So it's like, screw that. We don't want anybody to have this power. So maybe, you know what? Maybe that's the reason they're not going after Luffy. That was a question I had at the end of the review, which was like, okay, if this fruit was so important to the world government, then why did Luffy not have a crazy high bounty at the beginning of the story? If they knew he had this and you went to such lengths to throw Who's Who in jail, why didn't you give Luffy a higher bounty, like, earlier on when he was, substantially weaker than he was now? I mean, not for nothing or anything like that. Luffy was pretty strong by the end of the East Blue. But I'm just saying, if at the end of the East Blue, the government knew that he had the Gomu-Gomu No Mi, and they want the Gomu-Gomu No Mi, and they put like a 500 million berry bounty on this kid's head right as he's leaving the East, and you sent Cypher Pull Zero to take it from him, the Straw Hats wouldn't have been able to fight them off back then, and like during the freaking Whiskey Peak arc. They wouldn't have been able to do that. They would have won. The government would have won, and they would have probably killed Luffy. But maybe the reason was, it doesn't matter, because when somebody has the damn thing, as soon as they die, it gets reincarnated somewhere else in the world. Maybe it's different from every other devil fruit for that reason. Like when we saw Smiley die at Punk Hazard, the axolotl fruit was reincarnated in like the nearest apple, but maybe other devil fruits are different. Some of them reincarnate in the nearest fruit, some of them have to be a specific fruit, and then maybe some of them reincarnate anywhere in the world. Could be literally anywhere. You know, Luffy could have died in the East Blue. This thing could be reincarnated in the furthest, like the southern regions of the South Blue, you know? Could have been something like that. It could be on the Red Line somewhere. You know, you just don't know. So it's like, as long as someone has the power of this, it's pointless, because even if we capture them and kill them, the fruit ends up somewhere else anyway. So there's no point. We just have to wait for Luffy to die and then try this again and try not to mess it up this time, right? Then again, with Vegapunk and all of his research, he might figure out some way to maybe extract devil fruit powers from you. I was actually thinking about making a video about that, because for a very, very long time, it was always thought it was impossible. But with Vegapunk and all the artificial fruits and stuff coming down the pipeline here, I wanted to make a video talking about if it would be feasible to extract devil fruit power from someone forcefully. You know, literally take the power out of them and give it to somebody else. Kind of what Blackbeard's been doing, but we don't know the whole mechanism of that. We don't know if he's clearly killing the previous users, but what mechanism does he use to take the power out and turn it into a fruit or give it to somebody else, you know? How exactly would that work? Not sure. At any rate, that's another video. So, yeah, let me know in the comments down below what some ideas you are, like some specifics when it comes to this thing. But yeah, I don't even know, because like Jinbei's fighting Who's Who and finding out about this now. By the end of this fight, Jinbei's probably going to know all about it. He might even ask Who's Who, like by the end of the fight, like Jinbei beats down Who's Who, and is like, hey, that thing you said about Luffy's devil fruit, what did you mean by that? Like, why did the government want this? Maybe Who's Who doesn't even know. Maybe Who's Who's on the ground like, I don't know, man. They just told me to get it because it was really important to something involving the history of the government. That was all I was told. You know, like the integrity of the world government hinges in the balance of you retrieving this devil fruit. That's all they told me. I don't know everything about this. And then Jinbei's like, all right. Would Jinbei go and tell Luffy this after the battle, after Wano's over and they're all sailing away and they're all healed up? Wouldn't Jinbei be like, hey, Luffy, how did you get that devil fruit again? Because I was fighting a guy back on Onigashima, and he had a really weird name, but he was talking about, like, the government really wanted that power. And then Luffy would just be like, yeah, well, when I was a kid, I was, like, 7, I was at Fuchsia, and, you know, Shanks stole the fruit, and I ate it by accident. It was actually kind of a funny day. You know, Jinbei's like, okay, but where did Shanks get it from? He's like, oh, probably somebody. You know, because Luffy's not going to remember anything, right? And I was like, Jinbei's like, all right, well, this is some interest. I might have to do some research into this, right? So, yeah, at any rate, that's the video. Hope you guys enjoyed. Oh, right, Ant Facts. We gotta do Ant Facts. All right, so this is a good one, all right? Hit the intro. Go for it.
Ant Facts. Facts about ants and other insects, but mostly ants.
Okay, so, this started off as one that I was like, all right, I'll just do a quick episode on these guys, but they turned into something. This might be a two-parter of Ant Facts, I'm just saying. The leafcutter ant. I'm sure we've all heard about the leafcutter ants. They're ants that cut leaves, and you see them in little columns, you know, carrying the leaf fragments back to their colony. And, yeah, those are leafcutter ants, right? You know, every now and then you might, you know, see them in media, or you're like, oh, those are cool little guys. Okay. Here's the question. Why do you think they're carrying the leaves back to their colony? And maybe you're thinking, oh, maybe for food? Well, yes, but not for the ants. This is gonna get weird, all right? So, you know how last time, and I didn't even plan this, but last time we talked about various fungus that attach themselves to ants and force them to climb up the tree and latch on, do the death grip on the leaf, and then they die, and the fungus, like, cracks open out of their head and then spreads its spores. Okay, so there's actually other kind of ants that have more of a symbiotic relationship, a mutual kind of beneficial situation with fungi, rather than the more parasitic that fungus did with those other ants, okay? Leafcutter ants are an example of such. They build their colonies on massive fungi, pieces of fungi, okay? So the fungi, therefore, lives on the ants as well, because they're literally living in this massive fungi colony, but it's beneficial. It's not like they actually die from having the fungi attached to them, okay? And so the reason they gather the leaf fragments they can lift up to 20 times their own weight, so they cut down the leaf fragments and they bring them all back to their colony, is so it's dead plant matter that the fungi can subsist on. And then the larvae of the ants they feed off of the fungi from the ants themselves. The actual adult ants feed off like tree sap or whatever, but it's like the leaves are required to keep the colony alive, the fungi alive, and then the fungi on the ants is a food source for the larva of the ants. Isn't that freaking fascinating? That's like the fungus and ants working together. Do you understand that leafcutter ants have one of the most complex societies outside of human beings? Like human beings and some other primates, because there's some like primate hierarchies and stuff that can get pretty complex. But leafcutter ants as an insect combined did the fusion dance with the freaking fungi are super complex. They have a bunch of caste systems in their society, and it goes by how large the ant is. So as soon as the ant is born and then grows up, depending on the size of that ant, they'll be put into one of 4 castes, all right? The first ones are the ones that are the smallest, and they take care of the larva, okay? So they do kind of like the housekeeping around the colony, the nest, make sure everything's clean of debris, that kind of stuff. Make sure the fungi is kept as like in best condition as it can, and the larvae grow up to become ants, okay? And then the second largest are basically the vanguard, and they're the ones that kind of patrol up inside and down the foraging trails. So they're not the ones that actually take the leaves back to the colony. They're not the leaf cutters. They just protect the leaf cutters. They literally have a caste system that's like the bodyguards of the workers, okay? And then the third largest are the workers. They're the ones that go back and forth, cut pieces of leaves off, come back to the colony, drop it off, and then finally the largest of the ants, like the heavies of the leafcutter ants, work to actually, clear the way for a foraging path. If there's like rather large debris in the way, the big heavies come by and be like, "We got this. Ugh, all right, get to work. Oh, there's another little pebble in the way. Hold on, I got this. All right, continue." They might have some other jobs as well, but that's like their main task, okay? And then the queen, of course, hangs out back at the fungal empire or whatever and kind of oversees everything and, gives birth to larvae and all that. Truly, truly fascinating. A colony in just a few years can have up to 8 million members, all working together perfectly in unison with this caste system in order to constantly feed the colony and the fungus, and then feed the larva to make more workers to get the leaves to come back and feed the fungus. That nature is freaking fascinating, and there's so much more about leafcutters. That is just the beginning of this. I might have to make this into like a 2-part series or whatever. So catch you back here next time for the next installment of Ant Facts. But man, that is interesting. Later, everybody.